Hello everybody and welcome to part 2 of Wyckoff. You may be wondering why I haven't made the PowerPoint. Is because there's not much writing for this. It's more about talking. So let's just begin, right, and marking up. So remember I mentioned the Wyckoff price cycle. In today's video we're going to be going over exactly what that is, right, because it's a very important concept in terms of the overall structure of Wyckoff, and it's usually seen on the higher time frames, right? So just note that down. It's usually seen on the higher time frames, right? So let's begin. So essentially, the Wyckoff price cycle is a theory that the market moves in sections of Wyckoff, right? And what happens is, the beginning of the cycle, there isn't any beginning of a cycle. It's just that we start off with an accumulation. Accumulation schematic plays out, and as we all know, that causes price to surge up, right? It causes the mark up, as this diagram calls it, right? And following this, we have our distribution schematic, which as we know, will cause a move to the downside, right? And then we are followed again, just like any cycle, we go back to the start, right? We have an accumulation, which will cause price to move to the upside, and then eventually we'll have a distribution again, which will cause price to move to the downside. However, overall, we can see that our trend is bullish, right? So although we are seeing bull markets and bearish markets, right, overall we are still on the bullish side, right? And that's the important part of the Wyckoff price cycle. So now let's move on to this on a real chart. So remember that Bitcoin example that I showed you guys? I'm gonna now re-explain this, however, using the Wyckoff price cycle. So let's begin now. If I go on to this time frame, over here we've got a Wyckoff accumulation schematic, right? And here was the cause that here was the move, the spring, the test, whatever you want to call it, that moved price so rapidly in the bull direction, right? You probably remember this because this is the the bull surge of Bitcoin that caused everyone to jump on this hype train, where everyone bought and bought, right, without knowing exactly what was going on, right? So now you can know in the next bull hype, right, which is practically now, what exactly is going on with Bitcoin, right? So we had this massive bull run for Bitcoin, right, and it was caused by this Wyckoff accumulation, right? So I'll just name this WA, Wyckoff accumulation, right? And I'll just move this to the top. Bear with me. Right, so that is our Wyckoff accumulation, right? And then we have our mark up, right? So I'll move to the upside, right? Followed by our, so I'll just make this a bit shorter, followed by our massive distribution, which we broke down in the previous episode, right? I'll just name this, I'll just name this WD, Wyckoff distribution, right? And then it's followed by, like I said, another accumulation, right? As we saw in that diagram, right? Wyckoff price cycle starts with accumulation, and then we have our distribution, move to the downside, then again we have our accumulation, right? And the most important thing is that we are overall bullish, right? Why? Because you can clearly see, if I draw in like a basic trend line, overall we are bullish, right? Well, that's not really a great trend line. It's more that to understand that we are breaking highs, right? As we can see, we just broke this new high, all-time high for Bitcoin, and we were also going a bit above lows, right? So that you could call is a higher low. So yeah, so we are followed by a WA, right? Another Wyckoff accumulation, right? And then again, this is followed by, what do we have again? In fact, I can just copy and paste it because it's the exact same thing, right? Because like I said, a cycle is always the same thing repeating. Another mark up, right? And you can just identify this as the whole mark up, because now we are followed by our distribution again, and you can begin to start seeing some of the schematic, right? Our preliminary supply, our buying climax, perhaps. We need to see the rest of it, but this is the start of our distribution, right? And this is exactly what the Wyckoff price cycle looks like, and it's very useful on something like Bitcoin, when we can see this spanning over, the period of nearly a year now. This Wyckoff price cycle is spanning out for, right? So this is really great to understand where we can use it for, assuming where price can go next, how we can get possible entries, using our POIs, like I said here, and of course over here. So that our POI would be somewhere within here. You guys can mark that up in your own time. And of course we probably have one over probably around here, right? So those are where your POIs would be at, right? And yeah, and that's all there is to the Wyckoff price cycle, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.